What is up, guys? Eric here from Real Film Reviews, bringing you another movie review, this time for the new Michael Fassbender film, X-Men Apocalypse. X-Men Apocalypse picks up 10 years after the events in the past, if that makes sense, of Days of Future Past. So it's now 1983, and everyone in this world is in their 80s attire, and then an ancient mutant is brought back to life named Apocalypse, and he makes 4 horsemen to become his assistants as he attempts to take over the world and rid it of humans. That's really all I'm going to get into story-wise, because this movie has a lot going on, but this movie has the original cast returning of Jennifer Lawrence, James McAvoy, Michael Fassbender, Nicholas Hoult, along with newcomers Ty Sheridan, Sophie Turner, Cody Smit-McPhee, and a bunch of other people. This movie has tons of X-Men in it, and it's honestly a really good time in theaters. Now, to start off with, I want to compliment Bryan Singer on his direction of this film, because I think after Days of Future Past was so well received, I think he had a lot on his plate to make a movie that people would think was a worthy successor to that film. And I personally really like Days of Future Past. I think it's a phenomenal comic book film, and I think that this movie is a worthy successor. It may not be better than Days of Future Past, but it is definitely a fair movie to come after it. Now, as I feel like you always have to mention when you watch a superhero movie, the action and the effects in this movie are great. I really enjoyed all of the fight scenes in this film, and I think some of the effects in this movie are very good, especially compared to some of the effects we've had in previous X-Men movies. I think this is a very big step up. But by far, except for all of the people starring in this film who give great performances, the real thing that carries this movie is its script. And I think that this movie is getting picked apart by critics a lot for this, but I personally don't really see it. And I think the script of this movie is really what carries it along, because it has this nice narrative about mutants and acceptance in society. This movie almost feels like an Avengers film. Now, it's not as good as an Avengers film, but it feels like that. It doesn't have the wit and comedy, but it feels like the world is at stake. It's not like it's just one guy fighting somebody. Because in previous X-Men movies, sure, Magneto had some plots that were daring, but none of them were ever like end of the world, destroy everything type of situations. And that's exactly what this movie is. It's Apocalypse coming back and deciding that he wants to destroy the entire world so that only the strong mutants will survive. Now, the big thing I want to touch on in this film is the cast. Everyone in this movie is so good. Fassbender is just on another level than all these other actors, including his alum of Nicholas Hoult and Jennifer Lawrence and James McAvoy. The three of them are also phenomenal throughout this film, but Fassbender in this movie is just so good. And all of the young cast is actually really good. My favorite character in all of X-Men is Nightcrawler, and I think that Cody Smit-McPhee actually brought Nightcrawler to screen and gave me the character I always wanted to see from those old animated shows that I used to watch when I was a kid. We get Evan Peters back as Quicksilver, which is awesome. I really enjoyed Sophie Turner as Jean Grey, and I think Ty Sheridan as Cyclops is really good. I think all of the casting in this film was honestly really spot on, and I think that all of these actors did a great job bringing a younger version of a character we have already seen on screen to the big screen in their teenage years. Now, if you've watched the second trailer for this movie, you know that Wolverine is in the film. I'm not going to spoil what he does, how much he's in it, or anything like that. All I'm going to say is what we see of Wolverine in this film, if it is any sort of an idea of what to expect from the third Wolverine film that will be rated R, I am very excited for that movie. Now, Oscar Isaac plays Apocalypse in this film. Oscar Isaac is Poe in The Force Awakens. He's Llewyn Davis in the Coen Brothers film Inside Llewyn Davis. He's a phenomenal actor, and honestly, this movie sort of wastes him. He doesn't get a lot of lines in this film, and even though Apocalypse is a character with a very in-depth backstory and a crazy amount of powers, he never gets fleshed out enough in this movie for Isaac really to have anything to like chew on, and a lot of that is because he's just supposed to be extremely scary and powerful, and that's it. And I think that that's a big fault with this film. Even though Apocalypse is a terrifying villain in this movie, he's not like Ultron where he's trying to be funny even though he's supposed to be really scary. He's legitimately a terrifying villain. If I had to fight Apocalypse, I wouldn't want to. But throughout this whole film, we don't get enough of his backstory fleshed out to really think of him as a villain. He sort of is just that generic bad guy who's really strong. He doesn't have the human characteristics of Magneto for us to care about him, but then he also doesn't have just the pure evil of, say, the Joker for us to just truly sort of hate him while at the same time be entertained by his presence on screen. He's sort of just there and is extremely powerful, and he does have a couple scenes that are pretty cool, I'll give him that. But as a whole, his character is sort of just there to be the really powerful bad guy, which seems like sort of a waste, especially of Oscar Isaac's, if not also of a waste of the character of Apocalypse. They also do this really weird voice changing thing with him sometimes. Throughout the whole beginning of the movie, he talks normal, but then at the end he starts having this weird, almost like auto-tuney change in his voice, and I didn't hate it, but it was just sort of a little thing that I was like, that's kind of weird and I'm not that into it. And the other thing, and this is a very little nitpicky thing, is that Sophie Turner plays Jean Grey in this film, and she is English, and there are a couple points where you hear her English accent sort of sneak through in her American accent dialogue, and it wasn't a big deal, but it was sort of just a little thing that I noticed throughout the movie. I'm gonna give X-Men Apocalypse a B+. Honestly, if you enjoyed Days of Future Past, if you enjoyed First Class, I would definitely recommend checking this movie out. It's a ton of fun, and I don't really understand where all of the hate is coming from. I do agree that Oscar Isaac is wasted in this film, and I think maybe the runtime could have been trimmed down a little bit, because it never truly felt slow, but it did feel like there was just extra things in there that didn't really need to be there. But really, I think that this is a pretty spot-on X-Men film. I think we get a lot of cool mutants, especially new introductions that do really good jobs, and I think we also get a pretty cool villain. Even if he doesn't get fleshed out as much as I would have liked to see him get fleshed out, I still think that Apocalypse is a very intimidating and cool villain to see in the universe. Well guys, as always, I'm Eric. If you enjoyed this review, please do like, subscribe, comment down below what you thought of X-Men Apocalypse, share everything we do here on Real Film Reviews, and I hope to see you guys later.